Hello guys. No, I'm not dead. I just figured while this before this channel actually gains more dust than it has, I figured I'd come back and make a tutorial for you guys. Just kind of showing off what I've been up to lately. I've been doing a lot of drum and bass and so forth. So one synth that I've been using a lot and I really enjoy using is this sort of kill the noise, noisia sort of robotic-esque sort of synth. But since I suck at descriptions, figured I'll just show you what it sounds like. So yeah, this synth is actually pretty easy to make, and it utilizes like one technique that I really enjoy using when making bass synths, and that's wavetable oscillation. So to make this synth, I've here called it Ultros, named after a certain octopus in Final Fantasy VI. You can name it whichever character from Final Fantasy VI you want. So here I have a Thor, as usual, and I have a wavetable oscillator here set to mixed waves 1. I have the position at 49 and the octave at 3, and that's really all I have with that. And then the low pass ladder filter, I have almost the frequency almost set all the way up. Oh well, I don't know why it's all the way up here, but I usually have it around 10 or so, and that's because I have the resonance on to about 16 just to give it a little bit more of a bit more of a wet feel to it. And you know, of course, the resonance won't trigger unless if the frequency is down just slightly, or at least slightly. And so the big thing that's really making this synth work the way it is the LFO here. The LFO 1 in the matrix modulator down here is routed into the oscillator's 1 position, and that's just cranked all the way up to 100. And the rate is tempo synced on the LFO 1, and the amount or the rate is 6/4, and the waveform here is triangle. So here I just use this technique quite a lot because if you kind of scan through the wavetable waveforms, I guess, you can get all sorts of really neat sounds out of it, and just kind of playing around with the position and how far into the LFO you want the position to go and so forth. So just really play around with where you want the position and which waveforms that you'd want. Just a little tip. But for now, I have mixed waves and then 100 and 49 on the position. And so, like most of my synths, full decay sustain, and there's a slight bit of release. It's at 229 milliseconds. And just for good measure, I have the chorus on at about 14. So just to give a little bit of a chorus to it. Actually, let me show you what that sounds like without any of these effects on. Let's scroll down. Yep. So you see it's still somewhat quiet and everything. But because tape distortion rules all, we have the screen forward distortion here that I'm going to turn on now. I have the parameter 1 set to 90, and then parameter 2 set to 73. So a fair amount of compression, just to kind of collapse in the sound a little bit more, not make it too loud and too hectic. I have the damage control just set where it is. And then the cut, I just raised the high end just slightly, but really just EQ to your taste. Not too much going on there because I already have this EQ down here, which, as you see, I've just kind of boosted the high end just a fair amount, about 5.1 decibels. And then the low, I've just brought up slightly to 1.1, but that's just because it sounds better in my speakers, depending on how you're mastering it or whatever. EQ to your taste, really. One thing that I do kind of recommend is cutting this one little signal in the middle here just slightly. As you see, the EQ kind of dips down. I just noticed it kept clipping in certain sections, like when I had a what's it called, a spectral analyzer and all that in different programs. I noticed that this one signal kept kind of clipping, so I just have the parameter 1, the gain set to -6.3, the frequency at around 215.8 hertz, and the Q to 2.3. So just a little FYI with that. And just for good measure, I also have this RV7000 reverb, just to give it a little bit of room reverb. So nothing too special there, just really low decay, really low dry wet, just to kind of add a bit of a room atmosphere, but that really depends on, again, like your own taste. But the general synth, just remember like wavetable oscillation, kind of play around with the table that you want to have, or the waveform, and just play around with how the LFO works with it. Like if, for instance, let's see, if I lowered the amount that the LFO triggered, it would somewhat change the sound. Or if I change the waveform, or for instance, like had it to like this almost reverse saw wave in a way. See, it's kind of a stagnant sound, but if I play around with the position, I can get all sorts of different noises here. So yeah, I just really encourage you to play around with the LFO amount and the position. Just oh, and also the LFO's waveform, because you can get all sorts of really neat sounds out of this, just using this technique of manipulating these wavetable oscillators. So yeah, that's really what I've been using a lot in, well, a certain side project of mine. And I'll be linking in the description a certain song that of mine that uses this synth, and hopefully I can kind of show a little bit better what I mean in terms of like application for this synth and so forth. So with that, I hope this helped you out in some aspect, and as always, thank you for watching and have a nice day.